you know, I had just finished, and I had just finished publishing my book, which is How to Build a House, a Life, a Future. And, you know, I guess she was intrigued enough with the project and with me to invite me to come and speak to you guys today. So I wanted to, since this organization, and it's been really lovely to kind of learn a little bit more about everyone, since it's both visual and literary arts. I wanted to kind of start by highlighting some of my visual projects that definitely influenced the book, or kind of led up to me even writing a book, because, you know, previously, before 2018, I don't think I've ever, like, this was my first book. So how did I kind of arrive to this point of wanting to even write a book and sit down and write a memoir and a how-to book? So as Sally explained, I've always approached art making in a very interdisciplinary way. The projects are always conceptually based, meaning I'm really searching for the perfect medium for the message. In general, I'm very interested in how we situate ourselves in kind of a mechanized society, and my work usually explores ideas of comfort, risk, and how we define success. So, and that kind of, I'm just going to dive in and kind of share some photos with you. So let's see here. Let's see. I just have to select them, but okay. All right, so speaking of success, you know, this is pretty good for, this pretty much describes, I think, for everybody, or is something that we see as successful, and we're probably experiencing a lot of it these days. Hopefully, maybe not by a pool, but we're all sitting at home working. But this is from a project that I started when I was in grad school. You know, I became very interested in these early computers that kind of made their way from just, that kind of led the way from work just being a strictly office-based, you know, office-based thing to do, to bringing it into the home. So the iPad had just come out, and there were all these weird ads of people like lounging in their couches and, you know, tapping on their iPad. And, you know, it was just very strange at that point. This is around 2008, to think like, I don't know, that we would be so connected to these devices. And, you know, of course, now we're all tethered to our smartphones. So I started to really get interested in these machines, and this like drive of like how, you know, the success of like bringing work home, and really just being about office culture, etc. So that was the Commodore Executive 64. This is the Super Brain. And so one of the things that I started doing was I created these felt replicas. So they're all hand sewn objects out of felt, you know, all the buttons, everything. And I call this project the Playmates. So machines to support your idleness. Something, you know, machine to do nothing with. And I really, you know, it ended up being kind of an exploration about labor. You know, the iPad, there was stories of the people who were actually making the iPad kind of taking you know, committing suicide due to exhaustion. And, you know, just the thought of like someone working so hard to make these things for us to then lounge at home and do our work. So these machines were kind of imbued with their own labor. They're each an addition of 10. So I would make 10 of these objects. And each machine has a slogan from their original advertisement stitched on top. As you can see here, I'm attractive and weigh less than the standard, which is from the original advertisement. But this way it's more personified, kind of imbuing these machines as like, you know, you don't need these tools, you know, to achieve success. It's more about you. And so really personifying it and making it more about you, like you are attractive and way less than the standard. So in addition to labor, this ended up being about advertising, kind of an examination of tools, self-empowerment, and also just self-help. And you can see, you know, here's the Vector MC. And these are very crude machines that were just 2-button, you know, 2 toggle switches or whatever. So each came with the actual piece and then its own storage box, as well as a manual kind of talking about the history of computing. So it was very much a product. I sell them for $4.99, which is the price of an iPad. So this was kind of the first venture into kind of tools and ourselves and how we use them. And, you know, I'm actually still trying to finish this project, but it's kind of taken on a whole new role, I feel like, or I've really definitely become more, I don't know, as we're all sitting here on our computers, you know, it's so strange to me that this project has kind of taken on a new importance. And so I'm kind of having a push to finish it. So there'll be 6 machines, an addition of 10 each. So there'll be 60 of these sewn pieces. So thinking more about tools and like, who uses what kind, access to, knowledge about these very kind of basic, you know, just knowledge about how things work. For my thesis, I ended up creating this installation, which ended up leading more into kind of self-help and just how systems work. And this one's titled "How to Conduct Yourself." And as you can see, it's a wall with a grid of outlets that each had a plug extending from it. And then the wires kind of come together like tributaries. And they all connect to power a heat pad. So this is my idea. You can see the drawing. The idea was to go from like one plug, you know, spread out into a bunch of different plugs and then go back down to one. And this installation really was, you know, it kind of, I don't know, I had dreamed this up and it really led me down the path like, you know, okay, how does electrical wiring work? And how do I build a wall for this installation? And at the same time, as I'm reading these like how-to manuals about how to do basic electrical wiring to hook up all these things, you know, the poetics of like, you know, the conducting, how electricity conducts itself, you know, taking the path of least resistance. There's something very poetic about this language. So I kind of got really hooked into how-to books. So for this installation, you know, viewers could then come, sit down, and actually enjoy the heat pad. And you know, if you have some knowledge of how electrical wiring works, or maybe if you're not, obviously this is like a huge fire hazard. You know, this is not how you're supposed to wire anything, even though there's a surge protector, but you know, so when I went to the facilities manager at the college, I was like, this is what I want to do. And he looked at me and he's like, you're crazy. You know, this is like a giant electrical fire hazard. And, you know, I said, oh, of course. But, you know, there's only going to be one live wire to really go through, and the rest would be kind of cosmetic. So I had to actually write out the path of electricity for this installation, have him sign off on it. And again, through kind of this process and dealing with people, non-art people, I made the statement part of the show, which you can see here, and it just kind of got me thinking about this, you know, how-to books, the thing about the idea of instructions, and like I said, the poetics. You know, electricity takes the path of least resistance, which just by itself, I think the statement is just beautiful and something we could all use as a reminder. And I've done multiple projects with this kind of idea. And this project definitely got me interested further in ideas of just pathways, and again, like how we define success and how we get there, the journeys that we take. So I kind of have been doing this ongoing series of ladders. Again, a tool, something really simple. So I started kind of with computers, and I've kind of gotten more and more rudimentary with my tools. And these are also soft sculptures. They're sewn out of vinyl tablecloth and have LED lights inside of them. They're all shapes and sizes, and I have this vision of someday having a show of just soft ladders. This was actually on Heights Boulevard for one of their public sculpture installations. But I usually install them like marionettes. They end up becoming very anthropomorphic. And again, a ladder, it's such a really loaded symbol for, you know, success and climbing the ladder, and it's hard not to, I don't know, I find it a very fascinating object, which then also led me to kind of produce my first book, I guess. This is called On Their Way Up. But while I've been working on these, sewing these ladders, I've been also paying attention to around town and taking pictures while I'm driving, which is a terrible idea. But nevertheless, I've been taking pictures continuously of ladders on trucks. And, you know, we see this every day. And again, it's this idea of this simple object, you know, is kind of gives you this opportunity, and it's a way to make a living. And we see them just driving around, and so the series, I'm very happy with it, and the book ended up being very interesting because it's also Houston, it's our landscape, it's the traffic jams, and this like hustle and bustle about, like, you know, well, just the hustle of Houston and trying to make it in the city. And here's another one. So here you can see the pattern of the vinyl tablecloth, and vinyl tablecloth really because it's again a very utilitarian, somewhat fancy stand-in for an actual tablecloth, and it also really reminds me of growing up, and my grandmother would always have these vinyl tablecloths on the table, and you know, she would wipe them down after we ate, but you know, it was like you couldn't really clean it. And some have the vinyl tablecloth and then like a layer of a clear one on top of it. So vinyl tablecloth again, as well as felt, are materials that I keep reusing in my work. And here's another, this was in a show in Germany. Pathways. This is a series of drawings that I've been working on of the world's deadliest mountains. And again, a mountain, a very loaded metaphor. And you know, with this series, I'm really thinking about like the human drive to want to like actually climb those mountains. Like, you know, this, like, for example, the news of there's a traffic jam on Mount Everest is really mind-boggling to me, that there's so many people, that they're having to turn away people. They've even increased fees, but there's just not like there is no way of curbing the intense desire, I guess, to want to summit Mount Everest. And of course the trash and the climate issues that go along with it. But so with these drawings, they're black chalk on white felt. And I really kind of start these drawings, like I have a photograph of the mountains, but I just kind of start and go directly on the felt, so there's no erasing, there's no, they're also quite large, they're 5 by 6 feet. And it's like, once I start, I really just have to continue doing it. So in a way, it's like my own summiting my own mountain of finishing them and just making it work. You know, if there's a mistake, I'm going to have to figure out what to do with that mistake. So they were also part of my show. This was the last solo show that I've had, and it was called VIP. And the show was really about the color red and awe, and kind of how VIP status has become such a huge part of our culture. The phrase, you know, I'm a very important person is so ubiquitous at this point, and social media probably wouldn't be the same were it not for this sentiment. But you know, I'm a very important person is also a strong reminder that we're all human and important, and we matter. So in addition to the mountains, the show was really kind of conceived around this red oval, or this red elliptical track, and it is an actual red carpet that was cut to that shape, and people could climb on it and walk on it. But again, it's just this you know, continuous track thinking about red carpets and this idea of needing an audience, and you know, we're kind of in this loop. And at the same time, it's an elliptical shape, like the planets travel on elliptical paths. You know, I think about hurricanes. I mean, there's just the repetition in life, and so it's kind of taken on this big meaning. And I'm in the process of writing another book about this red carpet, and just thinking about different situations. You know, it can be a track, it can also be an island, the middle could be a hole, and some of that was explored in these collages that you see on the left hand side. You know, a lifesaver. So it's just yeah, just almost like a very like a child would look at it and see, like, how many ways can I work with this or make up stories with it. So that's in process right now. The show also featured, and going back to the mountains, the show featured also this red phone, which was called Find Your Calling, and you can press 0, again, a repetition of the elliptical shape. And when you picked up the receiver, there was an audio recording of someone scaling a mountain, climbing, breaking ice, and then you hear a babbling brook and frogs chirping, and explained the ukulele recordings, which also had cicadas. So thinking So in a roundabout way, this kind of brings me back to my book, and how to build a house, a life, a future. And I didn't include a picture of it, but so as Sally explained, um, we built a house, and while we were in construction and in planning phases and everything, we lived in a shipping container, which you see right here, for 2.5 years. You know, the site, basically the gate was where you walked in, and the house was would be constructed to the right, just behind the fence, and we were living behind the construction site. Now this is actually where I'm calling from, but this is in the house as it is today. So I'm just gonna exit out of the stop share. Essentially, how did I end up writing a how-to book? Well, I'm very interested in how-to literature. I've kind of gone down this like rabbit hole of being interested in tools and how things work, and finding the poetics in that. Some of the ukulele pieces are about, you know, are actually taken from that electrical how-to books, some of the texts. And it's, again, also an addition. You know, it's a very affordable way to, you know, showcase your work. In the book itself, so I have my drawings. I have drawings in here that I've done, and you can see some of the recurring themes, like the ladders for the chapter titled, you know, Your Worth. So it's yeah, it was a totally different process, and very interesting. And I have to say, I'm totally hooked on writing books or publishing books. It has been one of the most wonderful ways to connect with an audience, because I feel like sometimes in the art world, you work so hard for an exhibition, and yet it kind of it just exists in that short span of time. With the book, you know, the ladies at the post office ended up really getting to know me because, well, I was I was pregnant, and they wanted to talk about my pregnancy, but I was mailing all the copies of the books once it was published, and you know, they finally asked, well, what's this book about? Oh, it's about building a house, and you know, they were able to buy a copy, and so it's just been a wonderful experience. So a little bit more about the book. So I'm here actually in the backyard. And you can see the house. This is the back of the house, and the shipping container that we were living in. So how did all this happen? Well, you know, we had me and my now husband, Zach. We had this crazy dream of owning our own home, and we ended up deciding that we really wanted to build our own. It became really complicated, especially financially, because, you know, I've always been self-employed, been a 1099 recipient most of my life, and just starting to kind of unravel the difficulties of getting loans, and you know, having huge student loan debt as well. I was teaching, you know, here and there, and but teaching, you know, adjunct teaching doesn't give you any stability. So as we were making it through the process, I found myself at exhibitions and at openings and weddings and all kinds of events, you know, telling people like, oh man, we're trying to build this house, or we're in the process of building. And I started to realize that a lot of my peers were going through kind of the similar, either they were struggling in the same way, like, I don't know how I will ever have security. I don't even know how to start thinking about building a house, or that's never something that's never going to happen for me. So part of my outings would result in me giving, people advice, like, this is who you can call, or, actually it can work, but this is what they're looking for, and you kind of have to plan for it. And I what really ended up kicking me in gear to actually write down or go back and write down all of our experiences was kind of seeing people light up and be like, oh, this isn't a failed dream. This could actually possibly work. I could actually get this done. And so I thought, you know what, I need to write this how-to book, because there's so many artists, so many people who, who don't have the resources. So, there's a lack of affordable housing, especially if you want to, have something that can convert into a studio space. So it really kick-started this idea of like, okay, I'm going to go through all of my documents, put it into paper. It's a memoir, so it's purely our experience, but it takes you through the process of like why we wanted to build, how we found the land, but it explains debt to income ratios. It explains dealing with lenders, planning, dealing with the city, construction, dealing with inspectors. So what kind of documents you need to show to a bank. And it really ended up, it's about kind of giving someone hope. And, you might not be able to build a house in a year or two, but maybe in 5 or 10, the idea is like you really have to plan for it. And it can happen. So it took us 5 years pretty much to from like thinking about it to actually like moving in. And it ended up being, a crazy ride, and but we did it on a shoestring budget. We built our house, which is 1,280 square feet, 2 stories, for $130,000. But we live on half an acre of land. We're north of downtown in Acres Homes. And so there's plenty of land to expand in the future, which was a big kind of condition for us when we looked for land. So I'm sure there's many questions. I kind of like finishing a talk more with answering questions than just keep talking. But just to wrap it up, like the book, in a weird way, it started as like a how-to, just to give some resources to people. But it ended up actually kind of wrapping up a lot of ideas that I've been working on for, the last 10 years. Like, what is success? How much risk are we willing to take? An admiration for craft, trades, how things work, how we connect to our fellow humans, and who is important, or as we now say in COVID-19 land, is, who's essential. Yeah, and I think that kind of concludes the talk. I can.
Yeah, we're all on mute.
Go ahead and unmute if you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and unmute people, but you can unmute yourselves.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Ariane. I just admire you during those 5 years. Quite remarkable, takes a lot of grit to do something like that. And I wrote down the question, but I'm going to ask you, how many times did you want to give up on this?
You know, and Haley and I had a nice conversation before we started, and I mean, there were multiple times that I wanted to give up just because, you know, I'm on the phone and I've been trying to get a loan for months and I've had paperwork done and you know, and still someone says like, I'm sorry, but you don't qualify, you know, and it's just this like, how is this so hard, you know? So, I mean, there are lots of times where it was just the roadblocks were just endless. Personally, surprisingly, this situation and living out here was not, you know, we didn't have running water, we didn't have electricity for, you know, 6 months until we kind of got our permits approved. So it surprisingly wasn't that bad camping in the middle of Houston. But the extreme, yeah, just the extremes of dealing with these systems that are in place to basically not make it easy for you to get anything like this or done was just really mind baffling. But you know, I've lost it. I lost it a few times on the phone with a lender and broke down crying. But you know, but the takeaway is also that you know, the humanity that I encountered and how much people wanted to help, you know, and were ready to lend and you know, go out of their way and see what they can do. That's really, it's just remarkable, you know. So I was doing some readings before last fall, and you know, so a lot of people, they hear like, well, it might take 5 years, and they just, you know, you see their expression just crushed, like, oh no, that's way too long. But it's like, well, like, it just, it's gonna take that long, you know. You have to plan for it. You have to really think about what you want, which is kind of the hardest part. And you know, what do you really need? Like, not only what do you want, because you know, I would love a pool and all kinds of stuff, but like, what do you really need? And so it ended up I think that's really the hardest part. And then being on a deadline, you know, we got the loan and we got the contract, and it's like, this house has to be built in 18 months, you know, and we're the main contractors and coordinators, and I'm working a full-time job, and it just, you know, it was a lot, but we made it. And it's, and in many ways, and this is what I tell all artists, is that, you know, building this house was also like managing any kind of project that you apply for grants. When you apply for grants or large projects, you know, you have your budget, you have your you know, your description and your plans and how you're going to do it, and then executing it, and you know, staying on budget. I mean, it's the process ended up being very, very familiar in a very strange way. It's just that instead of a sculpture or an exhibition or an installation, it ended up being a house. So.
Well, I know who to call if I have electrical problems now.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm a little out of practice.
Are you using your containers as your studio now?
I am. So the one in the back that we lived in, it sadly has some leaks in it. So we're in the process of repairing it. After all these years, it finally leaked. But yes, I was using it as a studio, and it was actually where most of the book was written in. And we have another container out front that it was kind of the first thing that was on this land where we could store tools and materials. And my husband's business is actually now operating out of it. So, you know, this is the plus side of having land and having space. which was always the idea that, you know, yes, we have this house that has a footprint of not even 800 square feet in this huge lot, but, you know, there's going to be, we're able to expand and you know, pursue the things that we want to do.
Well,
Ariana, the weather can be nice in Houston, but what time of year were you camping?
Year round. We came into the container without anything. I think we moved in May, and we made it through that first winter. So the first summer and winter without, you know, water, electricity. We had a generator, so just like, you know, the generator ended up powering an air conditioning unit, and we devised all kinds of different ways of, you know, it ended up being a very creative process. Like, oh, so we don't have a faucet, so how do you recreate a faucet when you don't have running water? So, you know, so it's like, there's easy flow valves and hoses and using gravity to kind of create a semblance of normalcy. But yeah, so, and we used a composting toilet system, and yeah, I mean, and surprisingly, you know, people think like, oh my gosh, it's you know, it's so cramped, or it's you know, how can you live like that? But you know, I was at work. We're kind of not home that often, except for now. You know, it would have been terrible to go through a pandemic like that. But you know, I would go to work, and then you come home, you eat, you watch TV, and then you go to sleep. So you know, when we didn't have electricity, it was like, well, sun's down, I guess time for bed, you know. We had some candles and solar. We learned a lot about solar lighting, and you know, and just enjoyed kind of the nature around us. But we're kind of in the woods, as you can kind of see from where I am. But
we can
you know,
hear. It's wonderful. With a lot of chirping in the background.
Yes.
yeah.
Ariana, we have a question from Donna. Is your husband an artist?
He does not consider himself an artist, but he is, you know, he's been making art cars for many years. He's, I would say he's been very, he's very artistic and knows how to put a sculpture together so that it doesn't fall down. But he just never wanted to be an artist. His father was an artist, and he was like, not what I want to do, but I like making stuff. And he's actually, his business, he conserves and restores sculptures, so public sculptures. We work with private clients, etc. So yeah, he's definitely like in the arts, but not in a being the artist. He likes working with artists.
I think the fact that you two are still together after this 5 years of trial, I think that's wonderful testament.
Does your book have any marriage advice or for getting?
You know, I think it probably does. You know, there's a point where I describe, we just put in the second floor, the subfloor for the second story. And, you know, the moon was shining, and it was just a beautiful night. And, you know, we were like, we celebrated, like just dancing on our like second story, like that we've made it at least this far. And, but it really, so there were like some romantic moments, but truly it was like a very, you know, it was very hard. You know, we were in close quarters, and it was this constant kind of like on the brink of it falling all apart. But what really kind of, and I think we're closer than ever after this experience, is you know, that we really had to trust each other. You know, I was the person that had the financial, like, kind of stuff. Like, without me, there wouldn't be any finances, and without him, there would be no constructing a house. So we kind of had to, we just had to trust each other that we would be there for each other. And because, you know, without one or the other, this wouldn't work. So I think there was the idea of trusting would be the best kind of like how we got through this. You know,
Well,
you just have
I
to.
think that's wonderful, and now you have a lovely baby to to
Yes.
cap it off.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Lee. Are we? Do you want to move on to the Echo Fund?
Well, let's ask a couple more questions. One, I had one. Where can I get a copy of your Houston Ladder book? Is that available anywhere?
It is available. It's also at, it's listed under the Ottman Press. I think the link that Haley put in the email, it's ottmanpress.com, which is in true DIY fashion. I decided, you know, how am I going to publish this book? I decided to create my own press. And so, and the goal is that which actually, you know, for anyone interested, to continue publishing pieces, and specifically works that are how-to manuals and creative self-help. So innovative how-tos and creative self-help. So if anybody is writing along those lines, you know, feel free to send me something. And because the whole process was just really wonderful, but that was kind of the idea for this press, to just dedicate to that. Yeah, because I think, again, we can all learn from each other.
Yeah, we have a lot of members who think about that. It's like, it's either I'm doing this literary reading and then poof, it's gone, you know, or
Right.
I have this exhibit and then it's gone. And it's kind of like, to be able to collect those things and document it, and then have something you can sit and look through and give us Christmas gifts.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody gets one. No, it's a way to you know, really create a lasting version of your creative work. So
Right.
I like that idea, and I'm going to go look at OTTMAN. I need to look
Yeah, ATMEN. Yeah, press.
It's one T or two T's?
Oh, I think someone just put it into the message.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I received the individual artist grant to kind of publish it, and I, you know, have a wonderful designer that I work with, an editor that I worked with. So, but I just I wrote on a review of Bob Fowler. He's an old artist in Houston. I don't know if anybody knows him, but or knew him, because he's passed. But I wrote this review, and he published this book about public, you know, passing the torch. It was the title. And it was a how-to book that he published, self-published, about how he has been making public sculpture for the last 50 years. And that kind of got me thinking. I'm like, you know, all of us artists have so much knowledge and things we do on a daily basis, and there really should be more how-to books, you know, like about our practices and what we do or what we encounter, life advice. But I think there's a lot of along the lines like how to be an artist or stuff like that, but the nitty-gritty that I'm interested in.
Yeah, I think that we could easily say, and WiVLA, I'm not the only do-it-yourselfer and know-it-all in the group. Let me see, who else? Raise your hand. You know, we all have like a self-help book in us somewhere that we know stuff and we can share it. Yeah.
Right.
I did this, and I'm in Highland Heights, which is just south of Acres Home.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we moved our houses. We bought an acre and moved our houses onto it. I mean, my house was cut in half. It was during all of the tax storms and all that. And the roof off of it looked like two trailer houses that got caught in the hurricane. And I'm a lot older than you.
And I can tell you how to do the swimming pool that you want. I have friends who live near Fayetteville in the middle of nowhere, and they'd actually made their house out of shipping containers with a bit of the middle. And they made a swimming pool by piling hay bales up, putting a tarp over it, adding a pump, and that was it.
Oh my gosh.
So that's
Well, you know, that's a good start because Ariana, all you need is a baby pool right now. So.
Oh, right. Yes. Oh, we have it. We have it.
Okay, now we did have a question from Haley had a really good one that was, did the process of building the house inform ideas for future artwork? Do you have like all these ideas piled up that you just can't wait to get to, or
I think
are you worn out?
No, I think it's slowly starting to ruminate, you know. I think it was an experience that I've never, I mean, in many ways that show VIP came afterwards, you know, after we were moved into our home, and yeah, so it's definitely left a huge impression on me. And I mean, I just think about all the memories and ideas, and so it's just kind of, I'm still stirring the pot, so to say, but I'm definitely thinking like things are gonna, you know, a lot of stuff will come out of this. And I mean, and just working on the book, because that was like the next step, and you know, that alone has gotten me so much more interesting, you know, just ideas to work with. Yeah.
Ariana, can I ask really quick, like, with success being one of the main themes and like defining success, did actually completing or building the house, did that change your viewpoint of how you were looking at success before you built the house?
Good question. You know, yeah, because I think maybe we all struggle with this, but you know, I love reading self-help books and so forth, but you know, you always think of like it being an endpoint, you know, like this, you achieve the top of the mountain and then you're done, and if I just do this, you know, if I have this show, and you know, it was almost like, I think building the house also taught me that like things just take time, like just being patient. You know, it takes a lot of grit. It takes a lot of patience, and that it's not the end all be all. You know, it's like once it's done, you kind of continue, and then at the end of the day, like, you know, some people come and look at the house and they're like, oh, that's it. And it's like, you know, it's not the mansion, it's not what you're like, you know, the yard is still a mess, like we still haven't like fully landscaped things, like it's just an ongoing project. But I think, you know, the success, I think, especially as for artists, you know, we're always struggling with like, well, oh, I need to be with, you know, need to have a show at this museum and this place. And I think it's especially meeting like the inspectors and the plumbers and the, you know, just the different people that are just going about their day and doing their job and doing it really well and doing it for so many years. You know, you start to realize like what things are really important. And and you know, like, you know, it's just kind of like, what do you need to like to just be happy and feel fulfilled? So the idea of, I think it's changed from like success to more being like fulfillment, I guess, and kind of keep you know, keep pursuing a life that you want without losing the life that you have, if that makes any sense. Like you don't want to stop being an artist, but you have to keep but you want to pursue and keep going. So it's just I think that ended up being kind of the big change. I think after the house, I mean, you know, I love doing exhibitions and making art, but after the house, after the book, I'm just like, there's other ways to reach people, and you know, the art world is what it is, and I've kind of grown up in the art world, and I'm honestly kind of been sick of it for a while, and it can just be very harsh, and you know, I just think you just keep doing what you got to do, and eventually, you know, you will reach people, and at least you're doing what you're proud of and want to do. Yeah.
Well, you know, Ariana, I think that a lot of artists and writers don't give themselves permission to evolve. I mean, you're not going to keep doing the same thing over and over again. You're going to, you know, want to change, and you're going to have other interests. And if you just allow your feet, your toes to slightly point a different direction, I mean, you can go off on a whole nother path and really be satisfied doing that. It's like, you know, you don't have to like stay on that same path all the time. You can kind of veer off, and it's good. All those things go into making you the creative person you are. And, you know, and I understand that, you know, deciding, this is too stressful. What do I want to do instead? You know, and find that works for you. So, and that may change, and I'll let it change.
Right. Well, and I think, you know, there's kind of a I don't know, like, I think people don't really like that in the art world, you know, that people change, or work can change, or things are different. Like, you know, I feel like, you know, people look at my website and think like, oh my gosh, she's doing photography and this and that, and why, oh, don't you do these light installations? And so it's like you get pegged so quickly, and you know, it's also like, I've talked to curators, and they're like, well, it's about like telling a story, and you're just, you know, there needs to be a continuation. And but I think just naturally, I think people like to, you know, we evolve, we have different interests, or, you know, it's all different. So I think yeah, but I think this idea of progressing can sometimes kind of be seen, or there's not a lot of room that people allow you to, you know, do different things. But I just think it's natural, or, you know, yeah.
Well, you know, I really, we should all be thanking Sally for finding you and bringing you to our attention, because this has been a terrific program. I know you had something to do with it, but thank you, Sally.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Sally.
Where we met.
But
we met at the party given by Sue Payne. Do you remember Sue Payne? The Orange Show tour?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was at one of her parties.
Okay,
and,
terrific.
You know, one thing led to another. So thanks to Sue.
Yeah.
Sue came and spoke to us last year. Sue came and spoke when we were still meeting over at Archway Gallery. And Ariana, I hope you will come back.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
you get an honorary membership in WiVLA for
Yay.
a year, and but you know, we'll be putting you on the list so you'll find out about all of our meetings and just pop in on us and let us know what's going on with you. And I'm hoping that in the future, you know, we didn't get a chance to talk about tonight, but your experience with getting the artist grants and things, that's something we're all very interested in learning more about, how an individual artist or writer can get support for a project. So that's something we may just kind of back burner and check in with you and see if you would like to talk about that sometime. So
Yeah.
everyone, let's give Ariana a round of applause for spending the time tonight and the time to put together this presentation. And check out Ottman Press, and can't wait to keep up with you. So thank you so
Well,
much.
Thank you for having me. It was really wonderful. It was my first Zoom presentation, believe it or not. I've made it this long in the pandemic and not without having to Zoom. So, but yay!
You did great. You did great. Wonderful.
Yes, this was
Great.
just terrific.
Thank
I
you.
like the sound design in the background of the cicadas.
Oh yeah, they're so loud. They're so loud.
That's Houston. Okay, now if you want to hang with us, we are every year WiVLA gives away money, and it's called the Eco Fund or Echo Fund. It stands for educational and cultural opportunity fund, and it's a chance for an artist or writer to be given a pile of money that they can then take to go do whatever they want. If they want to travel, they want to buy some studio equipment, they want to hire an editor, they want to get something published, they want to, whatever they want to do, from a new septic system at the studio to I don't know what, going to a desert island. So, you know, we've had people do all kinds of things. And in the last 20 years, WiVLA has given away $42,000 to artists, 1,000 at a time. So that's what we're about, is supporting artists. And this is something we do every year. Now, usually we do this in April. And the people who won the previous year do presentations and all, so we're all thrown off by this, but we wanted to make sure we at least gave away the money this year, and then we're going to catch up on presentations and money next year. So what we've got is there are just a few requirements that you have continuous membership in WiVLA for the past 2 years. And so we have our membership chairs have like vetted everyone who was eligible. We made sure everyone who was eligible had an opportunity, and then they submit their applications, and then their names go in the box for either literary or visual. So we have writers and artists, visual, literary, and so you can determine whether you want your grant to be which one you are. And we also decided this pandemic year that, you know, we're not holding you to exactly what you say. We don't do that anyway on the applications, because we don't know when it's going to be safe to travel or meet with people or whatever. So you can get whatever you want. So I had Melody. I'm the current president. Melody is the future, please, president. And she verified earlier today by text photos that the names are in these boxes. So this is our way of being fair. Everyone who's eligible gets notified they're eligible. They all have a chance to apply. And then it's the luck of the draw, okay? So I just want to say also that we have members who've applied every year, and haven't won, and other people who win on their very first year, and other people in the middle, you know, so don't be discouraged. If your name isn't called tonight, hang with us and apply next year. So I have a totally disinterested person who's going to draw his hairy hand into the box and pull a name. So the first one we're going to do is the literary, all right? So here's the box.
A bow tie.
It's harder to open than the other.
Wow. I was going to say, I'm impressed with the bow tie. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so,
I would have dressed up.
oh yeah.
So the box doesn't open. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you see. You wanna see?
All right,
Drum roll.
winner.
Okay, wait, don't say winner. Don't say winner. You say, and the 2020
20 Eco Fun Literary Award goes to Mark Steiner. Wait, oh no, I read that wrong. Sabina Gartner.
Sabina
Sabina.
wins, and June is our treasurer, so she will be getting with you and getting you your pile of money. And now, artists. Here's the artist box. They're all in here. The dog wants to draw. Okay. Check it out. Okay. Hold one. Gladys Jones.
Oh.
Gladys on tonight?
I don't think
I don't think so. I don't
Oh, you
think
must
she's
be
here.
present to
No.
win. Never mind. Come on. No.
No, that's not true.
Okay, we don't, okay, get me off of there. Okay. No, these are people who've applied. There could be somebody who has technical difficulties tonight or some other issue. And so Gladys gets for the visual. I know we have a lot of visual people who put on their, yeah, I'm not sad about this at all, face. And we're all in this together, and WiVLA will support you any way we can, except only 2 of you get to 1,000. So, all right. So how will we let, if Gladys is not on tonight, how are we going to let her know? Should we just split it?
We can use a phone.
Phone? Oh, you mean text her? Okay.
I just did. I just texted her.
Oh.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
Talk all the time. Yeah.
And we'll let June get with her to handle the handing over the money, since we're not, you know, in person. We usually like to do this in person. It's just Melody, you have anything to add tonight?
No, but just, you know, with all this talk about money, and artists, you know, most of us sell stuff, right? Zelle is a really good way of moving money around. And unlike PayPal, you don't have to pay a fee. So I would, and it goes through your bank. Bankers love it. So it's a good thing to check into. I would suspect that everybody has a bank that uses Zelle. So I would encourage you to check that out, because it's a great way for June to transfer money, because WiVLA has a Zelle account.
You know, if you have a Zelle account and you don't use it, your bank sends you a notice and says you haven't used your Zelle account, so we're canceling it.
Well, then let's move some money. Let's move some money around.
No, because yeah, I have one too. And sometimes people don't want to do Venmo or PayPal or whatever. And Zelle has no fees for senders or receivers. Yeah. And the banks are doing this because they're trying to compete with some of these other money services. So for now, yeah, it's like the only free thing you can get a bank. So I'm sorry to hear that.
Also,
Facebook
Messenger also lets you send money back and forth for no fee.
Wow.
Okay.
One of my kids knows that.
Okay, so everyone's getting in the game, but for now, WiVLA is using Zelle, and Anyway, so this is another great month. Next month, we have 2 Houston authors, Dana Duterrell and Joni Fincham, and they have written a book about the 111 places in Houston not to miss, and they will be sharing their Houston sidewalk stories with us next month. They have a book coming out, which we're, I think at the end of October, which we're already planning to give a bunch of people for Christmas, because it'll be all these places in Houston that you haven't thought of. And we're talking about public art and graffiti and murals and all kinds of things. Are you calling her?
Yeah.
Susan's friends with Gladys. Okay, find out why she's not here to jump up and down. Okay. Anyway, so next month it'll be Houston Sidewalk Stories, and then the next month is our literary readings, and then we're winding up the year. So thank you to everyone who joined us tonight.
Got to remind people of the workshop.
Oh, I did that earlier, but yeah, I do need to remind you. Okay, Donna's one of our presenters. She did a really great job almost 2.5 years ago when we did that. So Donna will be teaching YouTube, and we've got 3 presenters from WiVLA and 3 presenters from Clay Houston, and it's going to be a really nice mix with their members and our members. So yeah, that's October 17th and 24th. Registration closes October 12th. So you've got almost a little less than a month to get online and register. And who doesn't like free stuff? So this is some great perk for our WiVLA members this year. Anyone have any final words? Patty?
I do.
Good to see everybody.
All right, Margot has an announcement.
Yes, I wanted to post a link for anyone who would like to view the part live performance, part video of Stormy the Opera. It's October the 3rd at 2 p.m. and there's one at 8 p.m. And
okay.
I copied it, and there it is.
Can you put that on the Facebook page too?
I will. I'm
Because
waiting.
then-
Kay and I are going to put some stuff on YouTube that we can also post.
Yes, please be
So
sure to
there it
post
is.
because I don't
There
want
it
to
is.
miss it. Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Great. All right. Anyone else? Yes. Thank you all for joining us tonight, and watch for your October newsletter. It's going to be packed full of stuff, and any other special MailChimps that we send out about other things going on. Keep an eye on the Facebook page. Share it with everybody, all your friends, because we have a lot of good stuff. Thank you so much.
Virtual gallery.
Virtual
Bye.
gallery. Okay, we're in a loop. Now we're in a time loop.
Everybody.
Okay. Yes,
That's
please.
free stuff too.
Free, yeah. All right, I'm going to wish everyone a free good evening, and thank you for joining us. And Shirley, anything else?
Me? No.
Yeah. WiVLAbility.
Glad to be
we're
here.
set. Yes. All right. It's great to see so many people tonight, and we just got to stick together. Anything you need, contact me through info@wivla.org, and I'll wait about 5 days, and then I'll answer your email. Okay. All right.
Good night.
Gladys,
Bye,
good
night. Thank you,
Bye.
Haley.
You're
Thanks.
welcome.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Yes. Yeah.
Good night.
I'm leaving too. Where's that button? Yay.